Welcome inside the collective. It's the 28th of October and week 9 officially of this NFL regular season. I'm Bobby Trossett, my co-hosts, Jeff Zrebeck and Cole Jackson. Great to be with you guys yet again. And man, oh man, it is night and day, I feel like, from a content perspective and what we have on the docket tonight compared to last week. And so as we kind of set the table here, Jeff, I thought you had a great outline of what our game plan is for tonight that you sent the group message yesterday. And we're going to go about it 3 different categories. Looking back, because it was worthy of looking back on, that's for sure, over the last week since the last time we went live. We'll look ahead, and then we'll even look a week ahead, because this time next week when we're live next, the trade deadline will have came and went. So there's a lot to discuss between now and then. Appreciate you guys for being with us. As always, this channel continues to grow. And if you want to help it continue to go in that direction, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll get to as many super chats as we possibly can. We already got a 50 burger, gentlemen, in there. I see it right now. The 50 burger is in there, and it came in a little bit earlier from Max Goodman. So we'll get to that and many more as they come in. But Jeff, I think the best way to probably start tonight is you've harped on it a couple times, both in the pre-show and in our group message. It's almost a different building than the one that you graced a week ago. So can you catch us up to speed? Yeah, it's funny. It's cliche to say vibes, but the current morale of this team compared to a week ago is what?
Yeah, I've covered this team since the 2011 season. And last week was as much negative. Playoff losses stand on their own. So let's just separate them. And then you had the Ray Rice situation, which was as bad as a locker room. That whole year was just for obvious reasons. But this last week was probably the most negative and bad vibes as I've seen in that building and felt in that building in many years. It really was. It was just everything, everyone knew their record, the uncertainty with Lamar Jackson, would he play? Anonymous, a couple of stories coming out that were highly critical of the operation, the coaching, namely Todd Monkin, and 1-5. And when you're the league's arguably the league's biggest disappointment, negative stuff's going to come and you have to deal with them. But it was not a whole lot of fun to be around that building last week. The vibes were just terrible. And it was hard. It was impossible to hide from that. It was obvious. But as the week went on, there was a confidence too with certain people, and it was because Tyler Huntley was lights out last week. People talk about in practice how the ball was barely hitting the ground. He was just, I had a couple people say it was like the best week of practice they've ever seen him have. He was laser focused. And guys believe in him regardless. And that's what I've said on the show a couple times. And you sense the belief that the offense was going to put up points because they believe in Tyler Huntley and they practice real well. So you kind of saw it turn around, and then they go out and play a game in which really, guys, that was the first game where they clicked in all 3 areas. The offense moved the ball and scored points. The defense forced the fourth quarter turnover. That was probably the decisive play in the game by Nate Wiggins. Got a fourth quarter goal line stop. Stabilized after those 2 early drives to give the offense a chance to get back and take hold of that game. And then the special teams, couple good returns. Luke made all his kicks, and Jordan Stout quietly may be the most improved player on this team. I mean, he's taken a lot of crap over the years, but he's been good this year. And that punt with Tylan Wallace, so that was a 3-phase win, and you kind of felt the momentum. It's almost like one of those things where the Ravens are like, well, don't let us get started, because once we get started, it's going to pick up quick. And then when you return to practice and Lamar Jackson's on the field with the first team offense, that changes everything. That lifts the spirit of everyone. There is belief. Today, even in the locker room, Lamar Jackson was holding court in the corner with Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers, and Snoop Huntley's over there involved. And then in another part, you saw Kyle Hamilton, Isaiah Likely messing around. It feels good to win, and you could see the switch a little bit. I think you guys would even acknowledge you could tell it with John Harbaugh and his body language. And to see an injury report with pretty much to go out to practice and see not a single player not practicing, and then the injury report is only one guy limited and everyone else is good to go. And I'm imagining Ronnie Stanley will be good to go Thursday night. That's about as good as it gets. You still have to continue to play good football. But it's amazing the turnaround real quick. It's right in front of them, guys. They got a game that they're favored to win, and then another mini bye. You got a trade deadline where you have an opportunity with plenty of draft picks to trade and some cap room. So it's looking in front of them, but they have to win a big game Thursday night. But it was palpable how much the energy had changed in a 4 or 5 day span since right around the Bears game, and then coming into this week with Lamar Jackson being back. And when Lamar Jackson's happy and back, all's right in the Ravens world. That's pretty much how it is.
It really goes to show, and we talked about this a few times, we haven't really seen this, and I wouldn't say this because I don't really remember anything like this happening in the 2015 season, but they just haven't had to face adversity in the regular season over the last couple of years. There's definitely been blips, the 2019 Cleveland game, the 2021 Dolphins game, that Thursday night fiasco. Yeah. So there's been blips, of course, but even being a Ravens fan, I can't remember the last time they got the shit kicked out of them 4 times in a row. Like, it was just, talk about all-time low. So it really just kind of shows. And I had to laugh at the Todd Monkin story because, this team, do we have the video of him with him saying F them MFs?
Absolutely. You want to run that thing?
Yeah, let's do that. This is just how I felt after it,
All right.
Let's go cue that up because this is me. He's just Todd Monkin's just quoting me here.
This is courtesy of at Hassan back again, who's got certainly a lot of relationships with the player community, and he caught this. You guys know the drill by now. It's Todd Monkin and it's Trippy. These guys are the best of friends pre and post game. And this was on his way in to work Sunday against the Bears pregame outside M&T Bank Stadium. Watch this.
I'm their muscle. Taking a lot of fucking flack. Fuck them motherfuckers. Let's go.
Yeah, I believe it.
Taking a lot of fucking flack. Fuck them motherfuckers. Let's go. I'm their muscle. Taking a lot of fucking flack. Fuck them motherfuckers. I'm their muscle. Taking a lot of fucking flack. Fuck them motherfuckers. Let's go.
All right, you get the point, right? You get.
Was that 4 F-bombs? I think I counted.
I love it.
Do and I'll let you get going here, Cole. 2 years ago, the offensive players had a guy count Monkin's cusses in meetings. It was Andrew Voorhees was in charge of counting how many times Monkin dropped F-bombs in meetings. They had a running tally, and then they just said, forget it. It just got so out of control. They couldn't keep track of it anymore. But go ahead, Cole.
No, that's how I show up to work too. Just quick, walking into the office at 7:45 in the morning with my coffee and just fuck them motherfuckers. But it really, I'm not overly surprised. I'm sure whatever the anonymous sources were. I think if we put our brains together pretty quickly, I'm pretty sure we know who it kind of was. It's just one of those things. The Ravens weren't moving the ball. The defense couldn't stop anything. That means less total offensive plays. There's less targets to go around. It's just, of course guys are going to get frustrated, and what heals frustration? Winning heals all. You look around to some of these teams around the league, not many of the teams that are losing 4 in a row or 3 in a row or whatever it ended up being have the type of talent. So you're not going to see the complaints, but you take a bunch of talented guys. You got DeAndre Hopkins, you got Rashad Bateman, you got Isaiah Likely, you got, a bevy of guys that just, I don't think we're even at where we want to be in terms of getting those guys the proper targets, right? Like, we just had a very convincing win, and DeAndre Hopkins had 1 catch. It was a huge catch in a big moment, and that's what we want out of him, but it's still only getting 1 target. So then you take that, you put it in a losing environment, and, I think frustration is going to, brew up. So, I just didn't find anything overly shocking, but it kind of went back to, we talked about this a few weeks ago when John Harbaugh kind of, seemingly in his post-game interview or his post-game presser took a shot at Todd Monkin. And it's like, I don't think the offense is, if you, and this is the thing, Todd Monkin is not infallible. If you want to look at his red zone offense, we've talked about that quite a bit. If you want to look at, pulling guys on the goal line, I have no issue with criticisms like that, but to kind of frame it as him being one of the fundamental problems. He's not even in my top 5. Take any offense in this league and you give them bad pass protection, you give them poor run blocking from your offensive line, you are pigeonholed in what you're able to do as an offensive coordinator. So, that was just kind of my reaction to the whole thing, and just seeing him come out and just have that react. It was perfect. It was literally perfect. He couldn't have said it any better. I would have said it the exact same way. So again, winning heals all, and it's just great to see the offense have that kind of bounce back. I guess one thing as we begin to look forward, I just hope that as we move forward, if this offensive line is, causing issues with some of the longer developing patterns, I hope we see them be able to make these adjustments into that quick passing game, because that was efficient. It took advantage of the skill. I would say the skill deficiency when you take an injured Bears secondary and a talented Ravens receiver room. They were without Tyreek Stevenson. Kyler Gordon missed that game. I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah. So they were down, I think, through their 3 top corners, and you could see it. You saw clean wins at the line of scrimmage by this receiving core, and they were able to work the quick game. So I hope that we're able to embed those concepts moving forward, that if the O-line is giving you some issues, if you're having to keep in 7 and they're not able to get the ball downfield where Todd Monkin wants to push it, and quite frankly where Lamar Jackson wants to push it, he's not a guy that wants to go out there and throw 4-yard passes. Lamar Jackson's the ultimate playmaker. He wants to push that ball downfield and take kill shots, and I don't blame him. But we need pass protection to be able to have that environment. So that's just kind of my big kind of pin in that Todd Monkin piece is, let's just hope we see that as we move forward, that if this offense starts to sputter, they can dial up that quick game and keep things moving.
Guys, and it was funny, Bobby, I think I was saying this earlier. A couple players saw that Monkin video, and man, they got a charge out of it too. You can bet that made their way around meetings in the Ravens facility this week.
Oh, he's the ultimate ball buster, man. You want to sit down and have a beer with him. I mean, he's something else. And maybe that sigh of relief that we just watched, even though that was pregame, but it also matched up with what we saw postgame too, and that same fan interaction part of outside the bank on his way out. Maybe it was twofold. One, you get a much needed win and keep your season alive. And 2, Jeff, you get the opportunity to personnel additions. Ricard is back now for the second consecutive game. I saw your screenshot of snap counts. What's it? 23% of the share for 14 total snaps. I'm sure that'll start to, gradually increase. You get Ronnie back out there. Hopefully he can actually, for the first time in what feels like a month, actually sustain 4 quarters with that ankle. He's been hobbling through that. And nope, boom, clearly there's a drop off there when it comes to blindside protector. And most importantly, though, Jeff, you get Lamar back. You had a chance to be out there today. I mean, there wasn't a lot to be learned last week from him just jogging out of the field, aside from optics being like, okay, Lamar has a chance. But clearly the decision now, it's go time for him. Yeah. I wonder how they game plan for him, though, knowing that he says he's 100% today at the press conference, and you sat there, but is he really?
Yeah, and then the other issue is, rust is inevitable. He hasn't played in a month, and this is an abbreviated practice schedule because of the Thursday. So you're not having, this was basically 1 full practice, 2 walkthroughs, and you're on the field at, in South Florida on Thursday night. That's just how it is. That's one of the challenges. So, but that's why you keep it simple. Short passes, run the ball. Lamar he's going to be fired up. He's going to be pumped to be back there. He's playing his hometown. He loves being there. He will have friends and family there, all that. They don't need Lamar to play hero ball to beat the Miami Dolphins. Just keep it simple. So, it was great. I'm sure that one felt good for Monkin, and it should feel good for all, their team, their organization as a whole. I mean, they had taken some shots. There's no doubt they were going through a tough time. And, I know there's been a lot of complaints from Chicago's end about officiating, about, it would have been different off all their injuries.
What a whiny ass fan base. Holy shit.
And about all their injuries. But look, the Ravens been on that other side of the ball all season. So they needn't feel bad for anybody to take advantage of another team's injuries. I mean, that's part of it, and the Ravens took advantage of it. And I think going forward, we saw kind of the recipe. We've seen the running. And what I like best about Todd Monkin, that first drive after the Bears made it a 1-touchdown game, I think we all felt we were going to see 3 Henry runs, and they were going to put the defense back to the field. What does he do? That first play, a short pass to Zay Flowers, picks up 6 or 7. Suddenly you're in second and short. And he stayed aggressive. They got a couple first downs. I loved the DeAndre Hopkins play on third down. Third and long, let your most sure-handed receiver who doesn't need to be open, who finds ways to catch. I don't care. Don't even look at anyone else. Just, you like that matchup? Just give him a chance. They gave him a chance. And when Derrick Henry was slamming into the center of the offensive line, bring Keaton Mitchell out when you face a tired defense that was banged up from tackling Henry and make them chase him. I think Todd called a nice game. The red zone issues persist, but he had a good day, and there's plenty he should feel good about going forward.
And they still converted twice down there. Pat Ricard made a huge block on that second touchdown. Once again, though, and I'm going to harp on it. They were on the goal line. They have the goal line defense out there. They call power, so they're pulling. And it's just the same damn thing over again. But luckily, Ricard got outside and, hits a nice seal block, which when Derrick Henry was able to,
Bateman had a nice, Rashad Bateman had a nice block on that play too, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, no, Bateman has been blocking his ass off. So that it's one of those things, again, you talk about players being frustrated, it's not showing up in their play. We're not getting the George Pickens inevitable, if it's a run play, he's just going to take 3 steps and then play patty cake. Credit to Bateman and those guys for getting out there and playing. But, big thing about Nuke is making that play. That brought back, those Anquan Bolden vibes, right? Yeah. Like where we need to play, it's 3rd and 1. We're just going to throw it up and our guy's going to go make the play. And that's what we needed from him. Again, we don't need him to have 10 targets and, be a fantasy football guy. We need him to, be able to make those big first down conversions. So absolutely huge to see it.
And how about Snoop? I mean, putting it where only Hop can get it, right back shoulder. I mean, come on, the ball placement. Todd Monkin's deserving of a game ball, but the dude who was out there executing was taking what the defense gives him. He had over 50 yards on the ground. He's not Lamar, but he got the ball out of his hand quickly, accurately. The intermediate passing game was there. Cole, you already mentioned the Bears secondary. It was clear, particularly coming out of the half, that we're going to go test them. They're down 3 starters. What do they do right out of the half? Hit Bateman down the middle for that vertical attack. What, it was 36 yards, I think. So just all around, like we've already alluded to it a couple times, maybe the first game of the year where you can really tout all 3 phases. And if that's a sign of things to come, then Jeff, what you've hit on from the top, maybe this whole morale boost is happening at the same time because they're healthy and they're starting to execute. And now on paper, which is a scary statement this year, on paper, the next 5 weeks, really, really attainable, and we'll have to see what we should probably, by the way, before we get to some super chats, we should probably wrap up the drama side of things from the week that was, because the coaching staff, it wasn't just Todd Monkin that was in the news. It was initially reported that John Harbaugh took away the locker room toys. We know that's not the case, and as of this afternoon, we actually know that it was Lamar himself who spoke with the equipment manager, Jeff, and had those toys removed. Marlon Humphrey spoke about it earlier today. Lamar confirmed it. I was skeptical at first because whenever Marlon Humphrey speaks, I think you have to have your antenna up. You have to have your radar up. But ultimately, it's a Lamar decision. And, Jeff, I wonder, since you've spent time around the locker room, I'm sure this thing's been blown totally out of proportion. But the fact that we're here now, how do you look back on that?
Yeah, I mean, players think it's hilarious. They cannot believe anybody's wasting their time talking about it. And frankly, they'd rather have us talk about that than the team being 1-5 last week. I mean, they were getting a huge kick out of this. And, I had heard last week it was Lamar when this all went down. And I didn't write it or say it because the last thing I was going to do was an anonymous source, who took the ping pong table away story. I mean, please. I mean, it'd be so ridiculous. And again, it was 4 or 5 weeks ago this happened. It was a complete non-story and the players were having fun with it. But yeah, I mean, I think that gives you a glimpse of the power Lamar Jackson has in that locker room. It was simple a matter of he texted the equipment manager and was like, get this shit out of here. It's just that there was no meaning in the minds. There was no, there's no whining to other people about people who are playing it. A lot of the stuff's in front of Lamar's locker. The basketball hoops right to his right. The cornhole tables are right in front of his locker. The ping pong table is right to the right in his eyesight, right next to the pinball machine. It's like a damn arcade in there. And I think he was just tired of looking at it. He's spending all this time in the locker room, which he doesn't usually do while he's, getting ready to play in games. But he was, rehabbing can be boring, guys. So I'm sure he was seeing it. He's like, I'm just sick of looking at this. I'm sure he's frustrated that he wasn't playing. They're losing and pissed off. And he told the guy to get it out of there. Like, that's why I kind of downplayed it and almost mocked it as much as I could. But yeah, I'm glad it finally came out, that it was Lamar. And again, the Ravens could have just said this a week ago, but I think, we could hit on this a little later, guys. I think it just shows you that I don't know how to put it, but they walk on eggshells with stuff around Lamar, right? I think that's all clear. Lamar does not like to be kind of looked at as this guy who's calling the shots and doing all this stuff. He wants kind of stuff to be downplayed. He's incredibly private about everything he does and says. And, players could easily volunteer this, but it's Lamar's decision. Okay, great. Let's move on. I mean, that's the sway he has. They follow Lamar. And if Lamar wants something out of the locker room, it's going to be out of the locker room. The equipment manager does not need to get John Harbaugh's approval if Lamar Jackson reaches out to him and says, get this shit out of there.
Cole, you have anything to add on this?
Let's just move on. I never want to hear the word ping pong table again. Okay. Like, what a bunch of nonsense. My God.
All right, fair. Let's get to some super chats then, because we got a lot more substantive content to get to in the second half of the show. Andrew G says, thanks for all your hard work. # Flock fam. Andrew, great to have you with us tonight. Cole Asmodeus Thanatos is in the house.
That's why I love working remotely. Called into HR so many times for cussing.
That was when you were on your tirade earlier with Monkin.
Yeah, I feel you.
Jeff, JS1919 is here with us tonight.
Great win. Apparently the end of the bar is right from time to time. Keaton, love Hill, but right now he isn't offering much. Bad lately in pass pro too, and Keaton is 10 times more explosive. It's hard to argue. I mean, I still think Justice Hill is an important player on the team, but this was an offense that needed a spark. This was a running game that was, struggling at times. I know their numbers were largely inflated by a couple of the Tyler Huntley scrambles, but it was tough sledding there for Derrick Henry, and they needed you saw the difference with the speed getting to the outside, and that was one of the things they discussed during the bye week. The benefit of the bye week in a lot of ways is the physical. We focused on the physical and guys getting a week off and getting guys healthy, and they got that too. But there's always a big emphasis put on self-scout and what are we not doing? What do we need to do more? What can we add? And a lot of people say, well, why didn't they decide that earlier? Like, why aren't these things getting fixed earlier? I mean, NFL is a condensed week. You prepare for a game. You're putting in a game plan. You only have so much time to look extensively at yourself and what you need to do. Now, I'm not Keaton Mitchell should have been getting the ball earlier. I'm not defending that, but that's one of the things they arrived at. We need to find a way to get the ball in their hands and look, not just on offense. I think Rasheen Ali and Mitchell helped them with field position too. They popped a couple returns there, and that's going to be important too.
Feels a lot like maybe I'm just in baseball mode right now with the Jays in the World Series, but it's like you got Derrick Henry, which is your fastball, and then you get Keaton Mitchell out there. It's a completely different look for the defense, right? Like the way you defend Keaton Mitchell and his speed, and like you mentioned earlier, Todd Monkin's ability to call plays around that, going back to the counter bash that we haven't seen. That's not really a Derrick Henry play. That's where you got to get speed to the corner quick if it's a handoff to the running back. So, the different looks you can give that defense, it's really like, coming out with a couple fastballs and then throwing that breaking ball and just completely catching them off guard. And that's exactly what happened in this game.
10.8 yards per carry for Keaton, 4 attempts, 43 yards. And then to Jeff's point, long of 39 there, which helps in the field position category. And when you got Tyler Huntley, everything matters when you're playing a backup. What was the total there? 66 yards for him. So, yeah, and Ali finished with 88. So both of them gave a little bit of pop in special teams as well. Max Goodman got us started tonight. Want to make sure this one didn't populate. So the 49.99 came in from Max Goodman. Didn't even throw a chat attached to it because he's that guy. Appreciate you, Max. And Richard says, ping pong table, Xbox One, pinball machine. Appreciate you Asmodeus for chiming in, and thanks for all of you for being
Jay-Z does when I get out of line. He makes me put my Xbox away.
You know what's funny about that? Like, wasn't there a shot? Did Jordan Stout earlier this season take a picture of Lamar playing the video games on the TV and put it on Instagram? Yeah. I think he did. So, Lamar wasn't begrudging anyone for playing it because he's played it too. I think he was just sick of watching it at that point.
Yeah. The real question is, Cole, when's the last time you stayed up playing Xbox the way you stayed up last night to watch 16 or 17 innings of 18-inning game?
Been a hot minute, and like my oldest had me up she was home with an ear infection right now. She had me up at 6 a.m. So I'm running off, I think 2 hours and 45 minutes of sleep. So I don't know. I might pass out in this chair. We'll see. We'll see if I can make it through.
Segment number 2.
A good super chat just came in that we might want to address. I think Jay-Z wanted to address this one. It's from Sam. Maybe pop that up and we'll just kind of nip it in the bud now.
Yeah. Sam says, can you go in depth with the whole limited saga? Expect any fines or loss of draft picks? Also, what do you think about the state of the Ravens' relationship with Lamar? 2026 cap hit is looming. Jeff?
Yeah, that's a really good question. About the limited thing, I honestly, and this isn't, I think the Ravens are either guilty of trying to deceive or just being stupid. So one or the other, they made a mistake and they're going to pay for that. And the league is reviewing it right now. I would expect there will be at least a hefty fine. Or we're talking multiple draft picks. I don't know if they get a hefty fine and maybe lost a day 3 draft pick. That wouldn't stun me, but I think it'll start with a hefty fine and they'll go from there. But look, I think the Ravens had a good idea coming out of bye week that Monday. And when Lamar Jackson said he couldn't practice, that he wasn't going to play. I think they knew that 2 games in 5 days was always going to be an issue. I think to Lamar, it was an issue. Not feeling 100%. How am I going to play 2 games in 5 days? So, but they didn't know he was fully out because, Lamar can be mercurial a little bit, right? And they wanted to keep the light on in case Lamar all of a sudden on a Friday or a Saturday came in and said, you know what? I'm ready to go. I'm sick of this. I felt good enough when I was out there. I'm ready to go. And he deserves the right to make that call. He's a 2-time MVP. He's the face of your franchise. You keep the light on as long as possible for Lamar Jackson to play. And that's what the Ravens were doing. The listing him as limited, I honestly don't think they intentionally tried to deceive the Bears because it's stupid. The Bears were preparing for Lamar Jackson anyway. They did not prepare for him any different if he was full in practice or limited in practice on Friday. They're still preparing for him to play that game. Anyone and everybody said for going on even before the bye, going into the bye, that he was going to come back and play the Bears. So I don't think the Ravens felt like they were doing any edge. It was just a mistake. And they either forgot the rule that if you were like Lamar participated in the whole practice, there was no limitations on him, but he ran the scout team. And if you're a starting quarterback, you're running a scout team, you can't be considered full. You need to be considered full. You need to do what you normally do as part of your role. And what Lamar Jackson normally does is run the offense, right? In the first team offense. So that's where they ran afoul. Ian Rappaport's story on Saturday, where he said that he was only running a scout team, that got the league's attention. The Ravens had to act from there, and they had to make the change, and they're going to face discipline, whether it's a fine. They're already probably some embarrassment. I can't imagine Steve Bisciotti's too pleased, not only with the check he's probably going to have to write, but the other potential ramifications. But that is what it is. The relationship with Lamar, we could do a whole story on. We could do a whole show on, guys. I mean, there's so many, there's so many things about that we could bring up, and I don't want to hijack the whole show on it. I think the Ravens and Lamar Jackson are fine. They have a fine relationship. I think a lot of Lamar's relationships are on his terms, and I think one of the things that makes Lamar so brilliant as a player is sort of the individuality and the belief in himself and how he does things. And that also makes it challenging at times to communicate. And he believes in a certain way of doing things. He doesn't sway from that. They have got him here. His tight inner circle, his mom, his family, they are all in on this. And Lamar is frankly not going to be told otherwise by other people. That's just how he's always been. So, there's so much said and written about this while the thing was going on. I think there was a guy who wrote, the bigger story here is the Ravens tried to push Lamar to play and he pushed back. Well, I'm not buying that for 1 second, because the Ravens of all people know you're not going to force Lamar Jackson to do anything. When his mind's made up, he's not doing it. So good luck with that. They're smart enough to know you're not going to push him into doing anything. The second part of it is Cole, one of your buddies, and Bobby, you may be buddies with him too. Spencer Schultz had a really couple interesting tweets about communication with Lamar and how the Ravens are scared to communicate with him. I think he made some good points. I wouldn't necessarily say they're scared to communicate with him, but I think it's always been a challenge communicating. And I just think that's what it is with a player who doesn't have an agent, who has this firm belief in himself, who is very unique, very deliberate with everything that he does. And I think that's led to some challenges. And yes, I think at times, the Ravens walk on eggshells around Lamar Jackson. They don't, they want Lamar Jackson happy. They want him engaged. They want him happy with how things are going, believing in everything. They don't want him pissed off. They don't want him to withdraw from the team and to be carrying on and not happy. A happy Lamar is a productive Lamar, and that means a productive Ravens winning team on the field. So I think there's a push-pull there and how much they ask, how much they expect, and all that. Again, it's complicated, fellas, and I could talk about this for an hour. But yeah, I think at some, they really walk on eggshells at times and not wanting to, give up anything that he's not going to be happy about or put him in a tough situation. And sometimes in turn, that leads to them being in a tough situation. And I think we saw that a little bit this past week with the injury report, but I don't think they were forcing him to do anything. I think they knew he likely wasn't going to play, but they were also giving him every opportunity to practice as much as he wanted and to get back and to give him an opportunity to say, you know what, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to go Sunday. Because if he even came to them Saturday morning at that walkthrough on Saturday and said, I'm ready to go, guys, he's starting quarterback Saturday, even though he hadn't taken he's starting quarterback Sunday, even though he hadn't taken a first-team rep all week.
Well, now as a result, right, the interviews will be conducted this week, and we'll wait and see whether it's a slap on the wrist or something that's a significant fine. Hopefully draft picks are out. I saw Adam Schefter's report. He would be shocked that if it were to be a
that was all Florio. The only one writing that was Florio, and he just hates the Ravens.
And look, they didn't, the move to it seems to me it was a little isolated, the injury report thing. But Tyler Huntley talked to the media on Friday, which is what your starting quarterback usually does. And as far as I know, I actually saw them taking Tyler Huntley off the field after Friday's practice to go to the weekly production meetings with the CBS crew. I don't think the Ravens were trying to deceive where they were making Lamar Jackson do all this stuff to let other people know that, hey, we're going to start him, when they knew he likely wasn't going to start. The big mistake, though, was the injury report listing. If they just changed the word from full to limited, we would not even be having this conversation. But they made the mistake, and now they're going to deal with the ramifications.
All right. That's fascinating. And Sam, I feel like Sam just set us up nicely for months down the line when we're chilling on a Tuesday night trying to figure out what the hell to talk about. We'll stick a pin on that on the second half of his question. So appreciate that, Sam, and great insight as always, Jeff. Max did have something that was attached to his $49.99 earlier on. It just wasn't actually with the super chat, and this is what it was. Max says, Jeff, you made a point during the bye week to ask different coaches about Malachi Starks. There's nothing that stands out about him that looks unique. Should we give him time, or is this an Elam situation?
Cole, I could start. Do you want to take that? I don't want to,
Yeah, no, I mean, it's too early. Like, I found it interesting. We've kind of seen a lot of stuff. I tweeted about it today, just a lot of stuff about Nick Emenwari. And, it was kind of, those were the top two guys in the safety class, right? And it was, if the Ravens were going to go safety, you could go get Emenwari, who was kind of, I wouldn't say a Kyle Hamilton 2.0. I don't know if he'll be quite as good as Kyle is, but in terms of usage and kind of the type of player he is. And then you have Malachi Starks, who's that kind of more traditional deep free safety. And Emenwari is now with Mike McDonald in a defense doing what Mike McDonald had Kyle Hamilton doing. Whereas Malachi Starks is in Baltimore under Zach Orr where their scheme has struggled 2 years in a row. It took them weeks last year to get things going. They had to do some things in their safety room. This year, we're seeing things, pan out a little bit. And it just, completely different roles, completely different things are being asked. One's with a defensive coordinator that has struggled since becoming a defensive coordinator, and one is a defensive coordinator that became a head coach pretty goddamn quick. So that really just kind of shows, I think, the environments that they're in and what they're being asked to do. It's just Malachi Starks hasn't done anything that makes me, say wow, but he hasn't really done anything that makes me overly concerned. I don't really understand where this has kind of come from. He's a deep free safety. If you're not hearing his name, it's probably a good thing. The only play that really stands out when I think of like, oh shit, that was bad, was the Devontae Adams play where it ended up going too high and he kind of shook Starks and, with a nasty route, and very easily could have been a touchdown. But other than that, like he's not out of position. He's not getting beat. A lot of the stuff we saw last year with those deep balls that Marcus Williams was out of position on, none of that stuff is happening. So I guess I don't really understand where the negativity is. They're a defense that wants to keep the ball in front of you. Everything is soft in coverage. Go back. I did a video on Nate Wiggins this morning and with him against Odunze. Pretty much everything that Odunze caught was a breaking route underneath Wiggins. This defense is prioritizing keeping the ball in front of them, and that's their deep free safety. So, if catches are happening underneath him, it looks an awful lot like he's being coached to make sure the ball stays in front of him. And I would imagine the secondary coach is sitting down with him and saying, you're doing what we're asking you to do. I don't really know how we can criticize him.
Yeah, I think thanks for your generosity, Max. Really appreciate it. I think he's been steady. I think the next step for him, there's been a couple issues. I think you expect a rookie cornerback or rookie defensive back to have issues. This is a defense that has struggled too. I think a lot was on him early when some of these guys were out or they were missing some guys in the middle of the field. But I think he's been mostly steady. The next step from him is making impactful plays and getting his hands in the football and being around the football. And I think that will come. We just haven't. I think people, when they think about a first-round pick who got raves all summer, they want splash, they want sizzle, and we haven't gotten that from Malachi Starks yet. So I guess, Cole, that's probably where that's coming from. I'll say this: the next person, player, coach, executive who I hear that's concerned about Malachi Starks will be the first. I think they still think he's a very good football player. I think he's a guy that we'll see get better and better as the year goes on. I think he'll make some mistakes. Rookie defensive backs do, but I think he'll be fine. And I don't consider him one of the team's top concerns, but yeah, you'd like him as he gets more and more comfortable to start making some plays on the ball.
I can recall you guys are taking me back to training camp when Harbaugh was essentially saying like, hey, that transition from, processing speed at the NFL level to playmaking just hasn't happened yet. And that was at some point early on. And maybe it was even during minicamp. I don't remember when that press conference was specifically. But Cole, do you see any of that on tape in terms of like almost this, not slowness, but this transition that hasn't successfully happened yet in terms of the processing side of things? I mean, maybe you just answered it yourself with the way that they're potentially being coached to keep the ball in front of them and it's all soft underneath. But are you seeing any of that pop out on tape?
Yeah, I think in the run game, like if you go back to that Lions game, I think it was David Montgomery had that 80-yard run late in the game. And he kind of stepped up and he was just in the alley a little bit too late and couldn't make a tackle and goes for a big gain. So I think there's definitely been times where you see that, and you're going to see that with all these guys. You can see it in Mike Green's game when he was in earlier. You could see it in People's game. Catching up to the game speed of the NFL is the biggest adjustment that these rookies are going to make. But all that's to say is, like I said, I can really count on one hand the amount of times in coverage where he's kind of getting beat and giving up his responsibility. So I wouldn't say it's been an overall huge issue. I think he's not being overly aggressive. But again, I think this whole defense hasn't been overly aggressive until last week. And, last week you see some sacks, you see an interception, you see a little bit of a different tone from the defense last week.
Let's cook through these next three to get fully caught up on Super Chats. And then we got to kick this thing into high gear to get to our second topic of the night. Maddie was just doing us a solid, letting us know that Max did indeed attached that comment earlier on. So thanks to you, Maddie. And then he also writes, the way Jeff describes Lamar sounds so mysterious. Haha. Also, any interest in doing this show twice a week? We get so much insight. Big fan of Jay-Z's work. Maybe one day, fellas. Maybe one day. And Richard, a.k.a. Asmodeus, says, when the whole defense was hurt / vets playing like ass, rookies will look bad. Now we're starting to see Mike Green playing better. Starks is next. And that fully catches us up to speed on Super Chats. So, well, we attempted to pivot to, but then you guys got generous out there in our audience, and we appreciate you guys for being here. And because we've been going a mile a minute, I almost forgot to tell you about our episode sponsor. Quick word from Sleeper.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
I'll continue big thanks out there to our episode sponsor. It is the folks at Sleeper. If you use promo code HMA, you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. You can see Sleeper's terms of use for details. It's currently operational in over 25 states, and we hope that you'll check out Sleeper today. Have a good time in season, and obviously, if you use that code HMA, it'll help us out on the back end. So appreciate them for their continued support. Jeff, as you look ahead, what's one area, one thing, one personnel grouping, wherever you want to take this, that maybe is still giving you a little bit of pause that could potentially keep this team back from where it appears to be heading?
I just think you need more from the edge rush group. They need, and it could be anything. This could be 3 different areas or whatever. You need to impact the opposing quarterback more. And we saw them create some plays with blitzes. We saw some, they spent the bye week working a little bit on trying to manufacture more pressure. I think we saw the results of that on a couple plays. I think they caused Caleb Williams some problems with their pressure. But we also saw them getting caught in pressure a couple times. I know the play that stands out is the Swift screen pass that I think went down to inside the 5 or close to there. They just got caught, and it almost got predictable by the end of the game. And Ben Johnson was on to Zach Orr. So I guess we're going to talk about the trade deadline in a little bit, but that's what the group. And Tua, when he gets in a rhythm and he's getting the ball out quickly, he can be tough to get to. So they're going to need to figure out a way to disrupt him on Thursday night and, to prevent it from kind of becoming a 7-on-7 type situation. The defensive improvements they've made over the last 2 weeks, you have to acknowledge. But I still think you look at them as a group that still has a ways to go before you could see them giving problems to a top offense like the Chiefs, the Bills, the Chargers at some point in the playoffs, which they're going to need to do.
And the screen game is the #1 way to kind of beat those blitzes, right? Because, the best way for a screen to be executed is to have the numbers advantage. If you have 3 out wide, and it happened with Nate Wiggins ended up blowing it up, one of the screens, but Kyle Hamilton was aligned with Nate Wiggins across from the 2 stacked receivers, and Kyle Hamilton ended up blitzing off the edge. And when he did that, it left Starks and Wiggins, and it basically would have set up if the block by the front receiver was made, it would have been just Starks versus the receiver and then nothing but daylight behind them because the rest of the defense blitzed. And those are the situations where, if Wiggins doesn't blow that up, you're in a lot of trouble. And, the Dolphins will take advantage of that. That's something that is part of Josh McDaniel's offense. Josh McDaniel. Mike. Part of his offense and part of what they do so well. They'll look to get Jalen Waddle the ball in space and, look to take those shots when they need to. So Jay-Z's absolutely right. Like, they were getting caught. They called about 5 screens in this game, and most of them were successful, except for the one that I highlighted there. But the big thing for me going into this game is going to be the physicality at the line of scrimmage, because if you go back to how Miami pulled out that win against Atlanta, and you got to look at it. They shut down Bijan Robinson, very, very impressive feat. And that was the defense and the offensive line playing very physical at the line of scrimmage. And I was very impressed with the Ravens' ability to be physical as well. You know, that double nose tackle alignment that they're using with Travis Jones and John Jenkins has been surprisingly effective. It's going to get them into trouble when teams are going to work laterally, just because, you know, John Jenkins is a nose tackle and you have him out in space a little bit. And same with Travis Jones. Ideally, you want to get those guys kind of working the center of the defense, and one of them at all times is going to be a little bit wider than they ideally would be. But I was really impressed with the Ravens' ability to play physical. You know, Jake Hummel coming in for his one defensive snap of the game and absolutely popping. You know, you got a couple big hits. Travis Jones, what a game from him coming out of the bye week. I thought that really flew under the radar, but he made several nice plays.
This is his best game since week 1, I thought.
Absolutely. And I think he added 4 pressures on top of, you know, I was looking at it today because I was looking at, we'll talk trade targets here, but he's actually their team leader in pressures, and it's their nose tackle, which really speaks to the edge rusher issue that they 100% have. But Travis Jones having a nice little year, 14 pressures on the year for a nose tackle. Can't scoff at that. But that's where this game is going to be won. It's going to be won in the trenches. It's a Thursday night short turnaround game. We know these games can get very ugly. Who can impose their will on the opposition? And, you know, what a time to have Pat Ricard coming back into the lineup, because I don't know. He only played 14 snaps. He absolutely, that one play where he just lifts the linebacker was just, you know, exactly what you want to see out of him. But I think he just is one of those guys, much like Tyler Huntley stepping in and inspiring confidence. I think he's like the fourth liner in a hockey game where, you know, when he's on the ice, everybody thinks a little differently. He's that enforcer. Yeah. He's that guy that sets the tone and makes the defense think a little bit, you know. So I'd like to see some heavy formations early, get him out there, get him hammering guys, and just, you know, work the ball downhill. And then when they need to, get Keaton Mitchell out there, use that thunder and lightning combination and move that football. But that's where this game is going to be won. It's going to be physical at the line of scrimmage, and the Ravens need to find a way to win that battle 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, Ricard's the guy you send off the bus first. When you pull up at a stadium, you tell Pat Ricard.
No, yeah, you might send Daniel Falele, but then then they get out there and they're like, "Whoa, we don't look like Tarzan, play like Jane."
You couldn't help but take a shot at Daniel Falele.
Hey, it took me 37 minutes and 30 seconds. I did good tonight.
There were over-unders happening in the pre-show live chat that I was.
And I went over. That was for Sam, our buddy Sam.
Yeah, there you go. You are hysterical. Well, guys, you know, caught lost in the shuffle too. Like, is it sustainable for them to start stacking games in 2 different categories, ball security and also taking the football away? Because they did both effectively on Sunday. Yeah. You know, Tyler got a little loosey-goosey there in the opening quarter. A couple times. Yeah. But ultimately, they're clean in that stat sheet. And then Wiggins, obviously, and what I thought was the game-defining sequence, first and foremost, with John trusting his defense. Right, you've already alluded this a couple times. They try to draw him offside. They punted away. Stout, what was it, Jeff? 58 yards or something like that?
Yeah, well, was it 50? I just know he buried him at the 4-yard line. And then
thanks to Tyler.
You know, yeah, Tyler Wallace made a great play. And then the Bears had a penalty and moved back to the 2. And yeah, that was the – how many times have we seen a sequence work against the Ravens this year where, you know, just a couple plays were the difference? And on Sunday, they actually made those plays. And, you know, for all the heat John Harbaugh got, he made the right call there. I mean, well, it would have been the right call if it didn't. It wouldn't have been the right call if it didn't work. But you know, the players have got to make these calls look good, and they executed. Jordan Stout executed, Tyler Wallace executed, and obviously, heck of a play by Nate Wiggins, who had a really rough start to that game. They were going after him early on those first 2 drives, but he turned it around and had a really good last 2+ quarters.
And by the way, Jordan Stout, when you look at his peers, pales in comparison in terms of attempts this year, but he is a top 6 ranked punter so far entering week 9. You go look at the numbers. He's only punted 19 times. Some of that has to do with the way when they were cooking with grease earlier on in the season. I think the top guy is well over 40, just to throw out some context there for Stout and his competitors. But before we transition to trade targets, and if there is a quintessential fit, maybe there isn't, we're going to cut to you in a second here, Jeff. You know, one thing that I'm definitely curious about pre-deadline, so I guess we're just talking about Thursday night at this point. is this manufactured approach to pressure. Is that sustainable? Because we're looking at probably a different game. I don't know if it's a different outcome, but a different game if Caleb Williams doesn't take those 2 intentional grounding calls. I mean, and granted, those were great designs. I mean, I think we alluded to this at one point, the Kyle Hamilton pick on Tooney, and then just to catapult himself off of Tooney and somehow track down Caleb. I mean, that was just tremendous. But there were a couple parts of the game where you're thinking to yourself, this thing easily could have swung the other way pendulum-wise. And we haven't even talked about the mismanagement at the end of the first half and end of regulation by Ben Johnson. I mean, that
fourth quarter sequence at the end was as bad as you'll see. I mean,
it was great. I was dying. I was like, John Harbaugh over there getting things ready.
I mean, it was just, I mean, first of all, and what was ridiculous is that throw and catch from Caleb Williams to DJ Moore totally gets lost because that was one of the best plays I've ever seen. I mean, he threw it that far across the field with a guy hitting his arm, hits him. Moore makes a great catch, but that's where it got bad. I mean, Moore needs to get out of bounds there, first of all, because the whole Bears offense needed to scrape themselves off the ground and run 60 yards down. That took a while. And then the throwing the ball to a 2-yard line. It was comedic.
And the crazy thing is DJ Moore, there was a miscommunication on the last play of the game. Not that it really would have mattered, but Kyle Hamilton and Marlon Humphrey confused the exchange with DJ Moore, and he's just sitting back there having lunch in the back of it. And then Caleb misses him. Vladdy home run. Let's go. 2-run shot. Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
What's the score? 2-0?
2-1. 2-1. Max Muncy got a sack fly in the second, but he just hit Ohtani yard. We needed that. Vladdy has been cold. Like, I wasn't impressed with him last night.
Oh, jeez. He's carried him. Now one bad game, and Cole says he's not impressed.
I'm out.
The Orioles will take him if you get sick of him.
That play from first to third and the gun that he put down on one hopper was filthy. Just filthy. By the way, if we're talking about whiteboard items, can the Ravens stay in bounds to close out the game on the fourth quarter? Yeah. Can they throw that up on maybe the management side of things moving forward?
I could see a little the Hopkins play because he sort of was tangled up and he was close to the sideline. But if you saw Hopkins, he was angry. He patted his chest and he apologized to the sideline. He can't do that. The Keaton Mitchell one, as good as Keaton Mitchell played, like, he had a clear lane. If he just cut it up, he gets tackled in bounds. But he chose to keep going outside. And they'll learn. And, I mean, that's, for the life of me, doesn't it seem like some of the Ravens' offensive issues start or, the explanation always is we're trying to find a matchup. We're trying to catch them off guard. Some of these times when they hustle to line of scrimmage on those goal-to-go places, it never seems to catch teams off guard. And that running a play before the 2-minute warning, a wildcat play to Derrick Henry, like, what are you? I thought Ben Johnson should have used his timeouts earlier there to get the ball back, and then I'm like, oh, he's just going to let him go down the 2-minute warning. What a gift! And they don't take the gift; they run a play. It was just, and I imagine I didn't ask about it because, as it turns out, it really didn't matter, and there's 600 other things to ask John Harbaugh about, but. That's a play where you just need to get down to the 2-minute warning, run first down play after the 2-minute warning, and you're not giving them a whole lot of time or you're forcing them to blow timeouts. It's little things like that. They don't have the margin of error to keep making those mistakes.
It's like they were going back and forth and like one-upping each other in mismanagement. It was crazy. So, guys, why don't we finish up the night on a week from today? A week from today is the trade deadline. Obviously, the Ravens are going to be motivated if they win this game on Thursday night I'm sure DeCosta's already got a million different scenarios in his head, Jeff, but you have a piece that's fresh and new up on The Athletic. Did it drop at 6 a.m. today? Because you had everything in there and you broke it up into categories, right? Like right player, right price.
And one or two of those guys have already been traded, or at least Keon White was on that list, the Patriots defensive end, and he got traded. And right now I do think Thursday's result matters. Like, how aggressive is Eric DeCosta going to be if the team's 2-6?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he won't make a move. I'm not saying he'll suddenly wave the white flag and start trading off pieces, but will you really trade a couple prime assets at 2-6? Like, you're going to have no margin of error the rest of the way. And if you do, you better make sure that player is going to get you in the playoffs, because if you blow assets on, if you blow prime assets and miss the playoffs or go 9-8 or something, man, that's an error in judgment.
It's got to be one of those moves that, we talked about it a few weeks ago. It's got to be one of those moves that is going to come with a signing, right? Like, we talked about Thibodeau at the time, just because it sounds like he might potentially be available. And it's one of those guys where you would trade for him knowing you're extending him in the future. So it's like you're paying the premium of not having to go find that guy in the draft. And that's why I've been all for it, because my God, we can't find pass rushers in the draft.
I think, guys, the best case scenario would be getting just a kick-ass interior defensive lineman. Like, and I say that for two reasons. One, it's a current need, and it could be a future need. Again, I asked John Harbaugh last week about Nnamdi Madubuike. He again had no updates, and it again didn't sound good. And if they had good news to say about him, they would be yelling it from the rooftops right now, because they badly need good news around here. And then another development today, and I know he's just a rotational guy, but it sure sounds like Broderick Washington is done too. Harbaugh said he needs surgery. He didn't say surgery on what. I asked him season ending, and he said, we're not there yet. So, but if you're having surgery late in October and early November, it's probably going to be for the season, depending on what it is. And maybe he got hurt rehabbing or something, or maybe it was not even an ankle-related injury. Who knows? We don't know enough about that. And then if you look going forward, Broderick Washington is $4 million in cap savings this offseason, so he's going to be probably a cap casualty. So then you're looking at Travis Jones is heading to close to free agency, and Madubuike's future, and Broderick Washington is probably playing his, maybe with the Ravens for the last couple months, and that's it. And you need a guy. You can't build an entire defensive line in the offseason. Like, if you get a shot now at a guy like Quinnen Williams, then I think you have to take it. But I will say, and I've talked to people in New York on this, his play has really dipped since signing that contract extension. And look, it cannot be fun to be on the New York Jets. So maybe it's just a change of scenery. Maybe he just needs a change of scenery, and he's going to be alive, and he's just tired of the losing. But again, you're banking on, I'd heard Jets would want at least a second, but they prefer a first. You can't give up a first here. You just can't. Maybe you get a second, and maybe you do like a second and a fourth. But his cap number is very high over the next couple of years. You got to make sure he's the guy you want. So that's why I think an ideal situation would be finding a guy like that. The most realistic situation, I think, is getting an edge rusher. And, whether it's Jalen Phillips or it's Will McDonald or Jermaine Johnson from the Jets, there's like 6 or 8 of these guys out there. You could even go, there's veterans out there like a Judon, or, there's just different guys out there. Are they an upgrade over Carl Lawson? We don't know. I would think the younger guys are, but some of these retread veterans probably aren't any better than what you can get from Carl Lawson. And he's already been in the building. So I think the most realistic scenario is getting one of those edge rushers. The ideal scenario would be taking a really big swing at interior defensive lineman.
You guys think that Carl will get a rotational role coming up on Thursday?
They only have 3 outside linebackers. They kind of have to, right?
They have to, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not convinced yet. Only because he's really only Fridays are glorified walkthroughs, right? And he got here on Friday. So that's one walkthrough. Monday was a walkthrough. Today was a full practice. So that's still.
To be fair, though, Jeff, it looked like David Ajabo walked through that game on Sunday. So, someone maybe should have told him it was a game and not a walkthrough.
He played like 50% of their snaps, too.
I just where did his explosiveness go?
You did see Trenton Simpson at times, right?
Yeah.
They tried him on the edge a little bit.
I love what they're doing, actually. They're lining up, and I'd been asking this for 2 years with Tavius Robinson, but they lined Kyle Van Noy up as a 4-tech and then put Trenton Simpson outside as a wide edge, and then creates that kind of double, and then they've been able to be very creative with dropping one out. So I'd love to see more of that. Just we literally don't have the bodies. Like, it's, Mike Green played 80% snaps, which is not necessarily what I thought his role was going to be this year. But I'll kind of jump into mine. I completely agree with everything you said. And, I've been all for, I don't mind spending the draft capital, give a second round pick. They usually suck picking in the second round anyway. To go land the guy, pay him. It sucks because you don't get the cheap years. I completely understand the economics of it. I just don't give a shit anymore. They need to solve the pass rush problem. Go solve it. Worry about it the rest later. But where my focus has been is more Ravens type moves where, and we talked about it before the show. They made a couple moves at the trade deadline last year. And, people are always like, wow, they're not going to make 2 trades. They almost made 3 when they almost got Calais Campbell. And, I'm personally excited because, we know the Miami Dolphins head coach got involved in that and kind of nixed that trade happening, even though it sounds like Calais was on board to come to Baltimore. So I'm looking forward to going and kicking the shit out of the Dolphins on Thursday to say F you for blocking that. And then I hope they turn around and take another look at Calais Campbell, because if you had Calais Campbell in Baltimore right now with his production, he would be the best pass rusher on this team. He has 17 pressures on the year. Travis Jones is the top Raven with 14. I feel like you could get him for like a conditional late round pick, and off you go with adding to that interior defense. It's not going to cost you too much. It's a familiar face. He might not be what he was in his heyday, obviously, but I think he's going to come in and make an impact, and it's not going to cost you much. Basically fills in what you thought you might be getting back with Broderick Washington, so you're upgrading there. So right there, Calais Campbell just feels like an easy one. And the big thing is, because I tweeted about this today, and everybody's like, that can't be the move. It doesn't have to be. If they wanted to make another move, they absolutely could. We're talking about a very late round pick for this, and they have like 5 fifth-round picks already with the comp picks expected. So they can make that.
Until they get one docked this week. Until they get
one
of those docked this week.
Take 2. Who needs more developmental special teamers? And then the other one I've been looking at is my guy, the guy that never should have left Baltimore, and that's Kevin Zeitler.
I thought Jay Higgins was your guy.
That's my new guy.
I've got a lot of guys.
And hey, we didn't even talk. How about when we talked about all 3 phases? How about Jay Higgins punching that ball out on special teams?
By the way, guys,
on hand on Twitter.
I love Keandre Jackson on special teams. Have you seen that guy get down the field? I talked to him today. That guy plays hard. He throws himself around on special teams. Today he was the first player out in the practice field working on his craft with special teams coach Anthony Levine. They're going to have to add that guy to the roster. That guy can make plays. And I wonder, guys, if that's Sanusi Kane, if his days are numbered. Like if they just sub out there those roles.
Because he was a healthy scratch last week.
He was a healthy scratch last week. You got to keep it.
They don't need those picks. They can get those guys UDFAs. So there you go.
I mean, the picks thing, Cole, and I agree with you. But the picks thing is they're going to do that salary cap is not in great shape this offseason. So you will need some cheap labor. But
they're going to need some cheap labor.
You don't need 12-man. You don't need a 12-man draft class. I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point, right? So it's like throwing one of those fists away or doing a pick swap, whatever it may be. But the other guy that I'd look at is Kevin Zeitler, because he's familiar here. He's played in the system. I wouldn't say he's having a great year in Tennessee, but I mean, who is? And it's just one of those things where, even when you looked at Kevin Zeitler before he got to Baltimore the first time around, wasn't playing well in New York, but again, like for the Giants, but again, who plays well in New York? So it's just one of those things where, being in this organization can really get the best out of guys, and you got the best out of Zeitler around the first time around. Obviously, completely understand the injury concerns they had, but I think they got to shake up this offensive line. I don't think you can keep doing this. And, you could have a potential world where maybe you get into week 12, week 13, and you have Emory Jones in at left guard and Kevin Zeitler in at right guard, and it gives you options. So, we talked about it. I'm just saying, and then it brings back one of my favorite family members, and that's Sarah Zeitler. We had a ball doing the Pro Bowl campaign for Kevin when he got his first nod. So great family, great people. I would just love to get Kevin back here. I know that no matter what, you could cut his leg off and he'd still be dragging his ass out there to play a game. So that's a guy you want in the playoffs. And I don't even really want to sit here and just crap all over Falele. He actually had a good game last week. Just to be clear. I thought he played phenomenal.
You don't think Voorhees played very well, do you, last week?
I thought he played well in the run game, but he just, I don't know. Like, I had a conversation with a couple guys that jump into film, and like, there's no way the George Warhop's just like, just land your hands outside. Like, there's just no way that's what they're coaching. So, I mean, I think Andrew Voorhees just needs to get that cleaned up, and he went through the bye week and he still hasn't done it. I think they like his physicality and his drive in the run game, but in pass pro, they basically had one true pass set, and both Roger and Voorhees got ridden right into Huntley's lap. So, I don't think that pass protection unit is where you want it. They need to make a change there. And we talked about this preseason, like starting caliber offensive linemen, it's hard to find them. So a guy like Kevin Zeitler that is a vet on a sinking ship, that's what you're going to have to go get. I think he's the perfect fit.
I couldn't even find guys like, and I networked. We have a Slack network with all of our colleagues. And what do you guys have to trade? What do you need? I don't even see here any offensive lineman being available. Like, and it's almost like for what little you get,
even available, right?
Yeah, it's Kevin. First of all, I'm not even convinced Calais Campbell is going to be available. I don't think Arizona, with a coach who is trying to save his job, and I don't even know if they're going to let him go. But anyway, we'll see. I mean, look, Calais, if he goes to the Arizona GM and goes, I'd like to get a shot with, I'm sure they would probably do it if they're out of it, but they have some winnable games. And if they're only 1 or 2 under 500, they're not going to, sell. But yeah, like you hear Wyatt Teller. The Browns, I know they traded Joe in the division, but are they really? And Wyatt Teller has a nice contract, if I'm not mistaken. I think he still has some money, and Batonio maybe, but he's going to retire as a Brown. I couldn't find names on bad teams that are like. I mean, are the Jets going to trade John Simpson? Is John Simpson even healthy? I'd forgotten. Like, they've had some injuries there up front, so it's just not a whole lot of guys. Everyone wants a guard, but where is he coming from? I just could not find even candidates. But, they talk about this. There's always guys available that we don't know about. But it's always hard in the trade deadline to address the offensive line. You have to find someone that that's attainable. And, in years past, I think we've seen Eric DeCosta not fill the biggest need. He's gotten the best available player. And the famous conversation with the Rams was not about Marcus Peters. They were not talking about Marcus Peters. They were talking about a pass rusher. And then they were having trouble meeting the asking price there. And GM said, would you have any interest in Marcus Peters? And Marcus Peters says, oh, yeah, sure. He was the best defensive player they could get on the market that year. And he was a huge difference maker for them down the stretch in 2019, I believe it was. And that's what it is. It's not always the biggest need you can fill. You have to find a way to improve. And sometimes you get a force multiplier like they did in Roquan Smith, where he helps multiple areas of your defense. And, there's only so many players available. There's so many of these guys, like even the guys traded today, like Kyle Duggar and Keon White are kind of late round pick swap guys. I don't think the Ravens you probably do need a depth outside linebacker, but Carl Lawson's probably that guy at this point. And you need an impact defensive player. You don't need a late round pick exchange guy for a guy that's going to come in and play very little, or that can't be your main move. If you're making that move, that needs to be the second or third guy you acquire. So I do think they need to take a big swing here and get an impact defensive player, but A, who is that guy? And B, send a message to your GM who watches games from the sideline that, look, we're getting going here. Lamar's back. We're starting to play. The defense has gotten better each and every week. You have picks. You have cap space. Go out and use it. But you need to send that message Thursday night that this is a team that's on the upswing, and it's just and it just needs a couple pieces to kind of push it forward even more.
JS1919 left us a super chat on this topic. He says EDC needs to go all in to a degree. 2-5 in the AFC to me is still wide open. You have to take advantage now of this window. Campbell and Zeitler would be nice, piggybacking off of the Cole top commentary, but they have to think bigger. Jason Zaratniak, Cole, do you have anything to add on that?
No, you're absolutely right. Like, Jay-Z's bang on. Like, they need to go big fish hunting on this one if they want to get the difference maker. And we saw that rumor kind of come out last week that they were calling about a corner, and I don't see that happening. Jay-Z's shaking his head, so I think he doesn't either.
Yeah.
But
where did you see that again? I forgot about that.
It was. It's probably not good policy for me to dispute a colleague's rumor on, on YouTube. But yeah, Diana Rossini, our national football writer, wrote that. I don't think they're out making calls on corners. I think the only way they take a corner is if there's a buy low guy that maybe signed through next year. Look, Awuzie is a free agent. Yeah. Jair Alexander is a free agent. Marlon Humphrey's cap numbers in the mid-20s next year. If you get a young guy for basically dirt cheap, and Tre'Davious White's not a young guy, but kind of that kind of deal where you get him for like a conditional late day 3. So it just falls in your lap, and you kind of don't plan on playing him this year, but you plan on coaching him up so he's ready to step in next year. I could see that, but no, that's not a priority. They're not out banging the bushes for a cornerback.
And last one of the nights from Jason Zarodniak. What's up, Jason? He says, Jay-Z, do you believe that Ravens players could be used as collateral in any potential trades? Also, what would your thoughts be on acquiring Zach Zeeler?
If they lose, I could see them making a couple player trades. The guy kind of come back to, and I hate to do this because I don't want to, it's just a feeding frenzy. We never mention his name, but is Mark Andrews. If you think you won't, you have the 2 tight ends. If you want to feature Isaiah Likely going, it's pretty clear that Isaiah Likely starting the season was more of a priority to re-sign than Mark Andrews. He's the guy they had contract talks with. There really was no movement on Mark Andrews. They tried to get a deal done on Isaiah Likely. They didn't get a deal done. He breaks his foot. Now he's not putting up any stats. So maybe you can get a deal there with Isaiah Likely where it was less than what he wanted. And you kind of find you meet in the middle here. And if you trade Mark Andrews, you can feature Isaiah Likely the rest of the season. And you still have Kohler and you have Ricard that can get involved in some of this stuff. So maybe you don't look at it as creating a hole. I mean, you'd miss Mark Andrews. The quarterback loves him, but maybe you feel like you can make up for it with Isaiah Likely having a bigger role, maybe playing Hopkins more, playing Devontae Walker more or at all, and you could trade him. But I don't know. I mean, and then the other name that comes up is Rashad Bateman. He's on everybody's trade list. He has a pretty valuable contract. He's having a quiet year. His mindset, his happiness on this team is a yearly issue that we're grappling with. So maybe you look there, but man, like who's your number 2 receiver then? Like DeAndre Hopkins should play more, but he's not a guy that's going to play 70% of the snaps. You're not going to be successful doing that. And physically, he's not going to be able to hold up doing that. So then you have a big need at receiver. I don't know if you want to weaken that group. So Andrews is kind of the name that comes out. As for Sealer, man, the Miami Dolphins just signed him within the last year, right? Didn't they just sign him a contract extension? I know he sort of has not played that well since they lost Christian Wilkins and Calais Campbell. He struggled. I think he had a good game against the Atlanta Falcons, though. He's a really good player, but when he's on a big contract, he's not that young anymore. And, when teams trade guys, they just sign to big extensions. The cap hits are big there. So there's usually not a whole lot of inspiration for teams to eat all that dead money in the case. I haven't looked at Sealer's deal in particular, but that's the case. So I don't know. I mean, maybe he's a guy. Again, interior defensive lineman, the Browns have a couple. Malik Collins, right? Shelby Harris. Maybe you look there. I don't know. It's just a hard position to find if you're going to take a big swing. People fantasizing about Dexter Lawrence and Jeffrey Simmons. I just don't see those kind of deals happening. I think even Quinnen Williams is a maybe, but I think you probably could get the Jets' attention if you start talking about a second-round pick plus.
It was August 3rd, 2025. So just this past offseason's Seiler signed a 3-year, $64 million deal.
Yeah, and how old is he, Cole? Do you have that in front of you?
30.
Yeah, man, I don't know if you want to eat that deal right now, especially since he hasn't played that well since.
I just had a moment where I'm like, wow, he's old, but then I realized I'm 3 years older than him, and it really just kind of kicked me in the ass. That was tough.
You'll be okay, pal. Try being 47.
He was Ozzy's last draft class too, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was his last pick. And look, that was they've Ravens do a very good job evaluating their own, but that's one of the miscues that stands out. And it's funny, they cut him the first summer. He didn't make the team first preseason, and they got him back on the practice squad. And I think he ultimately got promoted and played a couple games, but then they tried to cut him again, and he got snagged, and that one hurt. He's become a hell of a player, and he's a team leader there in Miami. So good for him. Great dude too.
All right, fellas. I think that's probably a good place to stick a pin in it for now. Short week, obviously. Dolphins loom on Thursday night. Ravens will travel down to Florida on Wednesday, so tomorrow. And so no media availability. The three of us will be back a week from tonight. It'll have been, 4 Eastern is the deadline that day. So we'll have plenty to discuss. And who knows? It might happen over the weekend. It might happen at the beginning of next week. We'll have to see. But obviously, I think the big takeaway is go win, and maybe all the options become endless after you get a W and improve to 3-5, and the optics only start to go more and more north. So appreciate you both. Thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. Still well over. I mean, we pretty much kept it consistently over that 400 concurrent number on a Tuesday. So we appreciate you guys for spending part of your evenings with us. If you could on the way out, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, tell a friend. We appreciate everybody that dropped in super chat donations, and we will catch up with you 1 week from tonight. It's the day of the trade deadline. Ravens have business to do prior to that, and it all starts 8:20 primetime football, Ravens and Dolphins this Thursday night. Appreciate you guys. We'll catch up with you next week.
Later.